Good evening, everybody. I think half of us, including me, we are feeling delirious. So I'll just run through the talk very fast so that you can have a break and have a cup of tea. So the topic given to me is acute confusional state in ICU. So delirium or acute confusional state in ICU is a commonly encountered problem by all of us in daily critical care practice. And in fact, encountering such a patient, whether at the time of ICU admission or during his hospital ICU stay, becomes very challenging. Before going ahead, just a little introduction. Delirium has been derived from a Latin word which means off the path. In everyday practice, we are using many terms loosely like ICU encephalopathy, ICU psychosis, ICU syndrome, acute confusional state. They all imply the same. Now, the incidence of delirium has been found to range between 15 to 80% in critically sick patients. So, as per the DSM 5th edition, delirium has been characterized by 5 key features. 1. It is a disturbance in attention, disturbance in cognition, developing over an acutely over a short period of time with daily fluctuations. You'll find the patient very normal. The next moment you go, the patient will be confused. That's the typical presentation, and each time it happens usually that you give the over that patient is delirious, but the night people say no, he was absolutely okay, was talking sense. So this is very important. And fourth criteria is that this cannot be attributed to any other pre-existing or established neurocognitive disorder, and there should be a sufficient evidence to suggest that this may be secondary to some current ongoing problem in the face or in the form of some medical condition, substance intoxication or withdrawal. So why is it important? It has been associated with increased ICU and hospital length of stay and the increased mortality. The negative ramifications have been found to extend beyond hospitalization because there has been found to be an increased risk of long-term cognitive impairment and increased transition to dementia in patients post-ICU discharge. Pathophysiology, very complex, poorly understood. And the hypothesized mechanisms are, as for any other disease, systemic inflammation, endothelial dysfunction, increased blood-brain barrier permeability, reduced cholinergic control over inflammatory response, leading to ultimately altered cerebral oxidative metabolism. 3 different types of delirium which we commonly encounter: hyperactive, where the patient is agitated, irritable, hypervigilant, trying to remove his medical lines and devices. The occurrence is the incidence is about 1.6 to 4%. So it is the least common type of delirium that you see. Hypoactive delirium, where the patient is withdrawn, has diminished alertness, slow speech. We feel that this is the most common in our day-to-day practice, ranges from 40 to 45%, but in fact it is the mixed delirium where both of these coexist. That's the most common type of delirium that you encounter in critical care, and the incidence is about 50 to 55%. So when dealing with delirium, first step is identifications of patients at risk. The risk factors can be divided into predisposing or baseline vulnerability risk factor, which are largely non-modifiable as for any other healthcare disease. And second is the non-specific triggering factors, which are largely modifiable. So any patient who comes to you with a baseline dementia, advanced age, depression, having visual hearing impairment, is predisposed to develop delirium when he is exposed to any of these non-specific precipitating factors in the form of either some acute medicational change, acute illness, sepsis, head trauma, seizure, and some metabolic disturbances. Second step is to find out the potential cause for delirium, whether it is neurological or non-neurological. So major causes of delirium can be broadly divided into 5 categories. First is metabolic, which remains the most common. Second is toxic, third is infectious, fourth is neurologic, and perioperative. So perioperative, we know that perioperative delirium, that was where the initially delirium was detected, and surgery and anesthesia have been found to predispose for patients to develop delirium, especially those who had some baseline or probably previously undetected dementia. So this table enumerates the various diseases which are there in these 5 major etiological categories. But apart from all this, we need to understand that in the ICU, the occurrence of delirium is secondary to pain and agitation, which is part and parcel of ICU care for obvious reasons. So pain control is crucial for management of delirium, management and prevention of delirium in ICU. And various prospective studies have evaluated the etiology, and most common etiological factors in the ICU delirium have been found to be metabolic encephalopathy, drug toxicity and withdrawal from sedatives or alcohol. Now moving ahead to third step. Third step would be to differentiate this acute confusional state from other conditions. What do we mean by other conditions? Is pre-existing or previously undetected neurological psychiatric disorder. So delirium, dementia and psychotic depression, they are closely linked disorders with lot of overlap between them. So differentiating them in a patient becomes very difficult, especially when he presents to you in an acute confusional state. You would not know unless and until some reliable history is available or some clinical evidence is available that it was pre-existing or it's a new onset. And it is even more challenging in a patient who actually is found to be in a confused state after recovering from the primary reason of his ICU admission. You have a typical patient who presents to you with sepsis, has requirement for inotropes, is put on ventilator, his sepsis and hemodynamics become better, but you suddenly find that patient continues to be in altered mentation. Now it is very difficult to know whether it's a pre-existing dementia or it is a new onset delirium. This is where the history helps. So delirium is acute in onset, is a disorder, it affects the consciousness and attention, may have hallucination, and immediate and recent memory may be impaired, but remote memory is usually intact. Other conditions from which we need to differentiate delirium is sundowning. Sundowning is a poorly understood but very frequently seen behavioral deterioration in the evening time, especially in a patient who has pre-existing dementia. Nobody understands that why it happens, but you will typically find the patient becoming confused during the evening time, similar to sunsetting. And a number of focal or lobar syndromes may mimic delirium, like a patient with Wernicke's aphasia may come across as delirious because he is not able to comprehend or speak and appears confused. Similarly, occipital syndrome of cortical blindness may mimic delirium, but when you examine the patient carefully, you realize that there is lack of vision. Third, you find most commonly patients with frontal syndrome secondary to trauma or tumor. They have akinetic mutism, they are incontinent, they are slow, lack of judgment, lack of concentration, they have emotionally labile features, all mimic delirium. So you have to have a background history and a relevant investigation to rule this out in the form of neuroimaging. Third is non-convulsive status epilepticus. Yes, not very common but not so very rare also. Encountered problem when you have a patient of altered state with you. So they lack their typical ictal features. So EEG helps. Dementia and primary psychiatric illness we have already discussed. So delirium screening gets hampered because of the inability of the intubated patients to effectively communicate. So to this end, various screening tools have been studied and validated, and of these CAM-ICU and ICD-SC, which is the intensive care delirium screening checklist, have been the most studied and validated in today's clinical practice. But before we screen for delirium, it is essential to have a thorough assessment of patient's level of consciousness, especially when he is on sedation. So with the help of Rickman agitation sedation scale. So if the RASS score is more than -3, only then you proceed to CAM ICU. Otherwise, reassess after some time. So coming to CAM ICU. So CAM ICU has 4 key components. One, it says acute onset of symptoms with fluctuating course, inattention, disorganized thinking and altered consciousness. For a patient to be deemed delirious or CAM positive, components 1 and 2 should be present with either 3 or 4. ICD-SC, it is an 8-item questionnaire. I don't need to go into the detail, but yes, it evaluates lack of consciousness, inattention, disorientation, hallucination, psychomotor slowing, inappropriate speech, sleep-wake cycle disturbances and fluctuating symptoms. Each one has been given approximately 1 point. So ICD-SC score of more than 4 indicates clinical delirium. Despite there being such streamlined tools, we know that their use remains suboptimal in clinical practice. The potential barriers to their use are: first, lack of knowledge of ICU delirium, unfamiliarity with these tools, confusing terms being used, and the 2 most common reasons which are cited by everybody is lack of time and lack of clarity that who should assess for delirium, whether it should be doctors or nurses. So moving ahead to the diagnostic workup, like for any other disease, it is based on the history, clinical examination and investigation. So history, you will get historical clues by seeing for the vulnerability profile, for asking for some precipitating factors like recent febrile illness or medication change, and third, any pre-existing neurological disorder. Clinical examination, now carrying out comprehensive clinical examination in a patient who is confused, agitated, uncooperative is very difficult. So clinicians are advised to look study for focal signs, neurological signs in the form of focal neurological deficit, neck rigidity, with special attention to general signs like new onset fever, new creps on chest auscultation, turbid urine in the urometer or hysterexis so as to get to know that what may be the underlying pathology. In our clinical practice, we have observed that any new confused state in a patient who's been with you, it heralds an impending event of new sepsis, whether it is bacteremia or pneumonia. So going ahead to investigations, we need to carry out CBC, KFT, LFT, excuse me for using these abbreviations, and electrolytes like sodium, calcium, then glucose, urine routine, urine culture for all the patients. Drug levels should be ordered if there is an indication. Toxic screening of blood and urine should be done in all the patients who present with altered state at the time of ICU admission. ABG is definitely needed, and neuroimaging with the CT head is a must if initial workup doesn't show any obvious cause of delirium. EEG, yes, it has to be done to rule out non-convulsive status epilepticus, and certain metabolic encephalopathies have characteristic EEG patterns, so it may be confirmatory, and LP should be done as and when indicated. So in delirious patient on EEG, we find significant reduction of alpha percentage, increased theta and delta activity, and slowing of the peak and mean frequencies. Biomarkers, many biomarkers have been found to be elevated in patients with delirium, but more validation studies are required before they can be recommended for clinical use. So once an initial workup has found a cause, which is VIP2, these are the most common reversible causes of delirium, all efforts should be for their optimal management. And coming to pharmacological management, one is specific, other is non-specific. So thiamine should be ordered if there is alcohol withdrawal or there is poor nutrition. Adequate analgesia should be ensured. This is the basis for delirium prevention in ICU. Opioid use should be minimized. There should be judicious use of sedatives with daily sedation interruption, and Propofol and dexmedetomidine have been found to have lesser incidence of delirium as compared to benzodiazepines. But benzodiazepine like lorazepam, midazolam may be used for acute restraint in a patient with delirium. So these neuroleptic agents are used for controlling the severe agitation, and because of the long clinical experience that we have with haloperidol, that is the standard drug of choice. But it has various side effects, like it causes extrapyramidal symptoms, QT prolongation. In fact, it is contraindicated in Parkinsonism, where newer atypical antipsychotics like olanzapine, risperidone, and QTPine remain the choice. Various studies have been found to have fewer side effects with these newer drugs, and some small studies have found a similar efficacy between them and the haloperidol. And there has been a recent evidence that the sodium valproate may be a reasonable alternative in these patients, but randomized controlled trials are needed for its further use. Non-pharmacological options, so the ICU environment characterized by high ambient noise, poor lighting, lack of windows, acute restraint, frequent change in room, some needing isolation, some not needing isolation. All these factors contribute to worsening sensorium in ICU patients. And these ICU patients have been found to benefit from, I think all of you are going into hyperactive delirium because agitation is starting. But anyhow, I'll finish off fast. So, some interpersonal and environmental manipulations in the form of noise reduction, early mobilization, that's the first and foremost, and control of temperature, sleep hygiene by having lights on. Can we have the fluctuation, please? Can you go into hyperactive state for some time? Please, it's disturbing me. So, sleep promotion in the form of lights on during the daytime and lights off during the night should be encouraged, and improved communication helps. So, ABCDEF bundle, it is the latest strategy for use of treatment and prevention of delirium in ICU. This is based on PAD guidelines from the US Society of Critical Care Medicine, and eCash program was recently launched in European countries based on the same guidelines. So ABCDEF bundle, A stands for assessing, prevention and managing pain. B stands for spontaneous awakening trial and spontaneous breathing trial. C is choice of sedation with goal directed therapy. Delirium monitoring and management, regular monitoring, especially if RAS score is varying, fluctuating, early mobility and exercise, and family engagement and empowerment. All of these components have found to be useful in preventing and treating delirium. This is the ESCAPE bundle, which is used in China. It's the combination of ABCDEF and eCash. So the strategy, you have a confused patient in ICU, look for neurological signs deficit. If so, order an imaging. Next step should be to look for and rule out any alcohol, drug withdrawal. If so, take care of that. Third is review the current medications, especially benzodiazepines, opiates, anticholinergics and antidepressants. If you find some offending drug, please stop it. Mechanical ventilation patient should get daily sedation interruption. That should be done. Non-pharmacological interventions like noise reduction, controlled temperature, proper lighting and physiotherapy should be done. And if the patient continues to be delirious, then use antipsychotics. These are the latest PAD guidelines. I think you all can read it. This was published in September 2018. I'm just going to quickly tell you what we have not discussed. Only 2-3 points. I assure you that I'll wrap up in next 2 minutes. So PAD guidelines says analgesia first before administrating the sedation, and it incorporates spontaneous awakening trial and SBTs and early mobility. And it gives lot of emphasis on sleep hygiene and sleep deprivation, which all of us overlook most of the times. So the important points to remember here is, all of you can go through it. To use assist control ventilation, they have recommended to use assist control ventilation at night as compared to fresher support ventilation for improving sleep in critically ill adults. So this is very essential. So this is very essential to improve the sleep quality in critically ill adults, and they have advised to use either an NIV dedicated ventilator or standard ICU ventilator for critically ill adults requiring NIV to improve sleep. So this is important, which they have come out very specifically, which we do not take care of. And subsyndromal delirium, which is described as ICD-SC less than 4, or a CAM ICU where 1 and 2 is there but 3 and 4 are not there. So you don't need to treat it, but you need to keep a close watch on these patients because they can potentially go into frank delirium. And these are the important trials, out of which HOPE ICU is the most commonly discussed trial in the exam. So 10 important points of understanding for delirium. It is at the core of pain, agitation and sedation triangle. It is a disorder of consciousness. It is a pathological state, complex interaction with drugs. It needs to be regularly monitored with CAM ICU and RAS score. And the best treatment is prevention, and the most important measure is early mobilization. And we should pay attention to sleep deprivation, pain management. PAD management starts with pain management, which is a precursor for delirium, and ABCDEF bundle should be used. So this is the prevention figure where the early mobilization is green. This is the most important. Thank you for your patient hearing.
Thank you, ma'am.